unless you're using it for educational purposes.
All right, guys. So welcome to episode 6 of the Chicken Tenders podcast. We're here with my co-host Zach Laurie and Braden Bijou, and our guest today is DownTown Sports, aka DownTown Stephen Brown. Thanks for joining the show, man.
Thanks for having me on, guys. I'm sure we're gonna have a lot of fun today, and I don't know. We're gonna have a lot of fun today.
Oh man, what made you want to get into YouTube?
I mean, I'm in journalism school, and I've always loved sports. So I've always tried to combine the two, and I also have a big mouth. So I figured combining the three of those things together, that YouTube was definitely a platform that was going to work for me.
That's cool. I've been watching your videos for about a year now. I remember when you had like 600 subscribers. I don't know if you ever seen my name in your comments, probably, but
it was a grind for a while. You know what? I'm pretty sure I do recognize your username, Danny Thomas Kid something, maybe.
KIB.
Okay. Yes.
Yep.
Close enough.
Right on.
Danny Thomas loves kids.
How long you been a Leafs fan?
I've been a Leafs fan all my life. Like, it started obviously with my dad and then my brother. But I vividly remember the early 2000s, growing up through that. My first Leaf game was in like 2006 because the tickets are so expensive and stuff like that. And they played the Carolina Hurricanes, and Brian McCabe scored the only goal in a 4-1 loss on the power play.
Sounds about right for the 2006 Leafs. Oh, man. Speaking of the older Leafs, we just clinched our first division title in 21 years.
Yeah. And I mean, a lot of people are happy about that, and everyone deserves to be happy about that, right? Like, the last couple of years have been absolutely miserable and stuff like that. But I have my sights are set a lot higher than that.
Oh, most definitely. Yeah, no, if that's our highlight of the season, I'm over this season.
For sure.
Yeah. What kind of setup do you use for YouTube? I'm curious myself.
So I use open broadcast software, OBS, and literally there's a $20 app on the App Store called iOS Camera OBS plugin. And I use my iPhone to record all my videos. I have an Audio Technica condenser microphone, and it all just hooks up to my computer, and it goes straight through that. And I record my screen to show all the nice fancy stats on the screen and cap friendly or Twitter or whatever I need to show. And then I just stitch it all together with Adobe Premiere Pro.
That's really cool. You're like, I'd say in the top 3 for like Leaf YouTubers, right? Like Steve Dangle, yourself, and like Andrew Pilakaki.
See, Andrew keeps wanting to blow smoke at me, but I don't want it, right? I just want to keep working, and I want to keep doing my own thing. Like, there's lots of people out there that are producing content for everyone, right? Like, some people, they don't really like the numbers and they don't like me. So, but there's content out there for everyone, and everyone's doing a great job, like you guys.
Yeah, we're just getting started. We luckily, like, we hit up Matt Stajan before we even put out episode 1 of the podcast, and he said he was down. So I was like, okay, well, if we could pull this off, we should probably be doing this.
Yeah, of course. Matt Stajan, another beauty from the 2006 team.
Oh man, he was literally my favorite player of all time. So like, I was more nervous talking to him than I could have been if Austin Matthews would have came on. I was just tripping the whole time. So
I will not agree to that one.
Oh, that's just my favorite Leaf of all time. Like,
yes, 100%. But if I had Austin Matthews standing in front of me, I might have a stroke. I honestly think I'd have a stroke if I had him standing in front of me. And I'm not even a Leafs fan. I just love Austin Matthews that much.
I would literally have a heart attack if we ever got this man on the podcast.
Fair. Hey, Braden, you had a question for him?
I guess we can hop right into that. You're big in the Leafs, and I listen to a lot of Steve Dangle, and I had not ever heard of you until Danny introduced us to you about 2 weeks ago when we were talking about who we were going to have on. If you could, if you had to reshape possibly, or if you just wanted to, would you redo the Tavares signing?
No.
And no.
Same
price, same everything.
100% no. Because when everyone talks about the Tavares signing, they loop in Kadri with it, and for me, those two things aren't connected. I think Nazem Kadri had his own things going on. that caused him to that caused his leash to run out here in Toronto. And if you're looking at everything else, John Tavares is an elite player in this league. He's to start this year, he wasn't really so hot, but not really his fault. He was getting all the scoring chances in the world, and they just weren't going in. I remember because I talk so much like stats and stuff like that in my videos, but his 5-on-5 shooting percentage with the Islanders for his career was like 11%. And then he comes to the Leafs and he throws up a shooting percentage of 5-on-5 over 16%. And it's like, okay, maybe that's unsustainable, but he's playing with better line mates than he ever has in his career. So you have to allow for that a little bit, but he's not going to shoot 8% for the rest of the contract, which is what he was shooting for like the first half of this season. There's just no way, especially playing with guys like with Nylander and Marner. And if you're looking at individual offense that he's produced, he's second on the team next to Austin Matthews. So it's like he's producing more offense than Marner and Nylander right now just by himself. And those guys are awesome in their own right. No, I would never undo the John Tavares signing for the Toronto Maple Leafs. I think he's going to win multiple cups with the Leafs. I believe that wholeheartedly.
Hot take, but I love it. What were you going to say there?
Do you think he's worth the 5th highest cap hit in the league, really?
I mean, you had to pay to get him, and the Sharks were willing to go a lot more, right? They were throwing out numbers like $12-13 million. He took a discount to stay here. So it's just like when I look at John Tavares and what he represents and just to the level of play that he can bring to this team, it's just like it's hard to assess his game because when you watch the game, you don't really notice him too much. But if you just lock your eyes on him when a play is going on, he's 2-3 steps ahead of the play all the time. He doesn't need to be the fastest guy out there. He's just always where he needs to be. And if he gets beat, he gets beat. And maybe in a couple of years from now, I'll change my mind on that. But right now, no.
Do you think
not.
he should have been named captain?
I mean, it wasn't my like first choice, but I'm definitely not upset about it, right? Like he is a former captain himself. He's a pro. He goes about his business. He's a model to what the team wanted to be when Lou Lamoriello and Mike Babcock started, right? They said that they wanted to make this team safe. They wanted to build it and grow a culture that would support guys like John Tavares coming home, you know, a hometown guy coming home, and especially with all the accolades that he's had and all of his accomplishments in the OHL, international play with Team Canada and then with the Islanders. I think he fits exactly what they were trying to do, and it worked. He came home, and he's the captain of the team, and I think he's living a lot of our dreams.
That's very true.
Yeah, I'm never judging players this year based on this season. This whole season is just kind of like, if you guys do great. And if you don't, like, just good on you for mentally getting through the season. And like, it's really hard for them. A lot of them have families and they got other things to worry about than how many points they're putting up this year.
No, and that's especially right. Like even like a guy, Robin Lehner, speaking out a couple of weeks ago, like they're locked in their hotel rooms. These guys, like if you guys know like Jack Eichel's pregame routine, like it was talked about and made a big deal of a couple of years ago, but that guy, like it's 100 steps and he follows them to a T every single day. Now he's locked in a hotel room, and hockey players, they're exactly like him. You know, they go about this crazy routine every single day to get them ready for games. And if they can't do it, I don't fault them for it.
No.
Did you see what Don Cherry said about Jack Campbell?
No, I didn't at all.
No, he came out and just basically said that he was cocky, which is like a weird take because like Campbell's the most like humble, nice person on the planet. Like,
right. But you know what? If the Toronto Maple Leafs goalie is cocky, that's fine with me. See, like Don is who he is, right?
Yeah.
That's a nice way of saying it.
But Joe Bowen is who he is, right? And we all love Joe Bowen for who he is and how he represents the Leafs, especially when he's on air. So it's just like, for me, if the guy who's who's won the most games for a Leafs goalie in the first like 20 or whatever games or so wants to be a little bit cocky, I'm cool with that. Right? Because he's backing it up. He's backing it up.
I find it hard to believe that someone can interpret him as cocky when he gets so down on himself when he struggles. Like, how could you ever think that person's cocky when he has a bad night and he's like rethinking his next 5 years of his career if they're going to work out like he thought the day before? Like, he does that.
He's really in his head. Like, really in his head.
That's just Don and his hot takes. You got to love it.
Yeah.
And Don Cherry sucks. It's as simple as that. Don Cherry sucks.
See, but my whole thing is that I don't care if he's cocky or not. If he is, great. But we don't think that he is. You know,
I love it.
I don't know.
Yeah, exactly.
I wish he was cocky. I fucking love it. That's the kind of stuff I love to see. That's how I was when I played minor hockey.
Look how that worked out.
If only I had a little bit more skill behind that cockiness.
Man.
Quick question about Matthews. How much is it eating you that he still hasn't been able to get that 50-goal season? It's been eating me.
I mean, right now, he's the best goal scorer in the league in the history of the NHL to not score 50 goals.
I know.
And it's just like, it's hard for, well, it's not hard for other teams' fans to take that seriously. Like when us Leaf fans want to say that he is the best goal scorer in the world right now, but he is, and he'll get to 50 eventually. If it's not next season for whatever reason, it'll be the next year. It'll happen. He's going to be a multiple 50 goal scorer by the time he laces them up or he's done. So I'm not too worried about things that I know are going to happen. It will happen eventually.
I'm not so much worried about it as like he just got so close last year and just couldn't get it to say I got it. It's just he didn't get it. This year he had a great year. Like you can't go, well, he didn't get 50, yeah, but he had an incredible goal.
The one thing that would be looming like in the back of my mind, like is like a small, like a little like tickle or itch or something like that, is the wrist injuries. And it's just like, but I'm not even too worried about those, but it's just like, we've seen it happen last season. We've seen it happen again this year. But the reason why I'm not too worried about that is because if you watch the games this year where he couldn't really shoot the puck, like he was taping his stick like 8 different ways. He had like 9 of them on the bench that were all taped differently just to see what he can do with his wrist with the way that it was feeling. But he battles. And I think that's something that this year's team, that's what separates this year's team from last year's team and the year before that. This team battles. They're different. They're different when you watch them. I don't feel the same. I'm not like when they're down a goal or two, like yesterday they were down 2-0 in Montreal. I was like, yeah, they'll come back. Back. You know?
I feel great when Campbell's in net and we're down like one or two goals as to comparison to like when Freddie was in net. I was so worried, man. Every game that we were up a goal or 2 or 3 or 4, I felt like we still might lose, but I feel a lot more confident with Campbell in net. But just this Leaf team in general, but it helps a lot with Campbell. And it's rough to see right now. Like Anderson's playing in the AHL. Obviously, he's played a game and a half, and he looks pretty terrible. I know he's coming back from injury, but
well, I mean, he hasn't played in a while, and I mean, I don't really think it's fair to have any expectations of him right now. If I mean, the way that I'm looking at it is if we needed him in the playoffs, he's another body there. And he's someone that I would prefer to have in net over a guy like David Riddick. So
yeah,
he's another body at the very least. And I mean, I criticized him a lot going back to last season, like because the trend started last January and then it carried through, and we were like, okay, well, maybe, you know, I'm willing to give him the benefit of the doubt. He's faced more shots and played more minutes than any other goalie in the last 3 or 4 years or whatever like that. You know, maybe he just needs a break. And then he comes back into the bubble and plays. Like, if you're looking at that Columbus series, there's a lot of misconceptions in that Columbus series, like that the Leafs didn't generate enough quality or quantity of scoring chances. That's not true. That they were bad defensively. That's not true either. But Columbus also wasn't very good offensively. And that Frederik Anderson's They did. They ran into a hot team, and they ran
Hot
into
goalies.
a goalie. They ran into a goalie who posted like one of the single best postseason save percentages in the last 20 years.
Yep.
And it's like, I think a lot of people need to give more respect to Jonas Corposalo for his performance in last year's bubble. But with Frederik Andersen, it's just like there's a theme. There was a theme going back to the first series that we played against the Boston Bruins in 2018. Tuukka Rask and him were both awful, but Tuukka Rask was better than him. The next year, Rask and Andersen were lights out phenomenal, but Rask was just that little bit better than him. And then against Korpisalo, Andersen wasn't bad, but Korpisalo was better than him. And it's just like a trend through this year when you're watching the Leafs is that the other team's goalie is always better until Jack Campbell went 11-0.
Yeah. Even since the 11-0, he's like 6-2-2, which, you know, is still pretty good. He's I don't know. He's impressed me a lot this year. It's cool to see. Random question. The Olympics coming up in 2022. Are you cheering for Team Canada or Austin Matthews?
Oh, I mean, I just want everyone to have fun and no one to get hurt, right?
Agreed. Oh yeah.
But
Agreed.
definitely Canada all the way. Definitely.
I won't be
wanna
mad
see-
if Matthews scores the you know, gold medal goal. I wouldn't be mad. I'd have to cheer.
So if he scores a goal similar to, I believe, like Parise did in like 2010, you're not mad at that at all?
No, I can't be. It's Matt. It's our guy.
As long
I'm
as
sure-
Marner scores the overtime winner, right?
The
That'd be
NHL
all
has to
right.
sign that agreement.
Let's not get
Is it
an
not
OT with
happening?
McJesus on our side.
It hasn't been confirmed that it's going to happen yet. They're still discussing, and that was one of the things that I've drawn back on this year and thought, like, the NHL has been really scummy with the players this year in the sense of they've been lying to them. Like, you get vaccinated, we'll lighten up restrictions, and then everyone gets vaccinated, and then they don't do anything. And then now they're going to. It's been announced, but it took a while. And we should have wanted to avoid Robin Leonard having to come speak out and say what he said, because it kind of just made the NHL look bad. You want the NHL to just go, yeah, this is how we're going to do it. We're going to get them vaccinated, and then once we have herd immunity within the teams, we'll lighten up the restrictions. Instead, they just abused the players' hope. And then now, big TV deal this year. How are we going to get the all the players on board and everybody involved? Well, we'll go to the Olympics, and then the deal gets signed, and now it's not confirmed though, so we might not go to the Olympics. How would you feel if that happened, Steve?
If they didn't go to the Olympics?
Again.
I mean, in 2018, it was a weird feeling because you're watching that Canadian team, and then you're watching, what was it? It was athletes from Russia versus Germany in the gold medal game. And it's
the
like
Russian gas.
the interesting thing that I found whenever I watched a Team Canada game was I was like, okay, who's the guy that's going to step up and steal the headlines and stuff like that? And
Rene
that's-
Bourque.
Yeah, or like Christis Gerslevskis or whoever the goalie for Latvia happens to be at the time.
Oh,
That is an element that I enjoyed a lot.
Yeah, but that's the whole thing. That's what the Olympics were for a very, very long time, is they were amateur athletes, and the
Yeah.
involvement of pro athletes didn't come about until like the 80s or the 90s or something like that. Don't quote me on it, but I don't mind watching the unsung heroes, the guys like the lifers that have played in the American Hockey League, or even guys that were playing just like professional men's league or something like that, and they step into an atmosphere where nobody knows their name and they get to make a name for themselves. But I'm definitely missing that best on best competition. Right? Like they tried to do it with the World Cup, but some of Europe, Team Young Guns, it's like it didn't do it for me. Like I didn't care as much. There's some sort of romance between waking up at 7 o'clock in the morning to watch Team Canada play the States or Russia or something like that, which is what we got in 2014.
Yeah, most definitely. Off topic here, but like John Tortorella isn't re-signing in Columbus. Just got announced like 2 hours ago.
He's a good coach. I mean,
Yeah.
he has his ways. You know what you're getting with him. He's not changing, no matter how many times he says he's changing. He's not changing. But I think if you really want to send a message to your players, similar to one that the Leafs wanted to do when they extended Carlisle, it's like you could bring in a guy like that for a year or two to get the rebuild going. Like, I mean, like it's hard for me not to make everything about the Leafs, right? It's hard for any Leafs fan not to do that. But it's like watching Babcock in his first couple of years here, it ended the way that it did. But I'm not going to pretend like the first couple of years weren't good. Like they weren't promising or anything like that. If a coach can come in the short term and help you get the most of guys like Babcock did with Riley and Kadri and a couple of others guys that ended up sticking around, I think that he can still be useful somewhere. It just has to be with the right front office, someone that understands him and is willing to put up with him. And there definitely is a fit for him in the league because he definitely cares. You can't accuse him of not caring.
He might
Right.
care
Was
the
it
most.
Was it the first year Babcock got there? They had that first round against the Capitals.
Yeah.
Yeah,
No.
That
That was
year
the second
two?
year. Yeah, that
Was
was
it
it
the
was year
second
two.
year?
Yeah.
But like that was during the Babcock era, and they almost beat the Capitals.
I
Yeah,
feel like
they're-
that
Like they almost did. They
that was
almost
my
did. They
favorite
took a
Leafs
couple in
playoff
overtime.
series. Like
Such a fun one to watch. As an
in this
outside
era.
fan who didn't care about either teams, like I was drawn into that series because, like, as a Vancouver fan, you kind of just close your left eye and then your right eye, and that's how you watch Canucks games simultaneously.
That
Those are
series
hard.
was so stressful.
Yeah.
But it was like,
Ah.
I mean, it's like there was things to like about him, definitely things not to like about him. But I'm not going to say that the Leafs weren't better for having him for at least a year or two or three, And I think the same can be said for John Tortorella. Eventually, he overstays his welcome, and you got to move on from him. But I'm not going to pretend like what he was able to do with like they dethroned the Lightning the one year, and they were the underdog against the Leafs, and they stuck to their game, and they won. So it's like you can't discredit him as a coach. I don't know. Maybe you want to talk about him as a person and his tactics and stuff like that, but his team on the ice, he gets the most out of his guys.
Well, that
Most
whole
definitely.
that whole team is just ran differently than the rest. Like they loaded up for that playoff series when they took down the Lightning, and then like they're not strapped with any of that cap that they brought in. Like they made really smart deals to gear up for that playoff run. But I don't know what they do now because everyone just keeps leaving. That's what it seems like. Like right when you go all the way back to Rick Nash, their stars always leave. What do you do?
Old.
I don't know, I remember like Dangle talking about it on his podcast and stuff like that, and he was basically asking that same question, like, what do they do? And it's like, I don't know. You gotta throw money at guys, I guess. Like what? Like we'll never know what happened with Pierre-Luc Dubois. Like we'll never know. He just stopped wanting to be there. And if it was Torts, I mean, I guess we're gonna see a difference next year, right? You would hope so.
Yeah. My
You would
question
hope
through
with
all
Line
this,
A.
my question through all this is if Line's like consideration for signing there changes with Torts gone.
I mean, they're all professionals, right? Like everyone wants to watch hockey and they remember it in their days in their youth, playing minor hockey and whatnot with your friends. But this is a pro game, and guys, I mean, like Line, he still is going to be an RFA, right? He doesn't have too many negotiating rights. Another team could throw out an offer sheet or something like that, but we know that's not going to happen because it never does.
Unless you're Marc Bergevin.
Yeah, unless you're Marc Bergevin, and even then, it's soft as hell, right?
Yeah, exactly.
It's I think he would have re-signed there, Torts or no Torts, just because if you're looking at him, he's got a label on him, much like Taylor Hall did, right? Where he's not worth as much as he should be, even before coming to Columbus. He had I don't know, maybe I'm wrong on it, and if I am, don't be afraid to call me out on it, guys. Like we can definitely have some arguments here, but I would put those guys in the same boat, kind of thing. Like he has as much to prove as a guy like Taylor Hall did.
Oh, I think so.
And it's like,
I think he
I
got a
don't know.
half-assed fair shot in Winnipeg, and I think guys like Scheifele and Wheeler, who have absolutely terrible attitudes and they're terrible defensively, and they mask it with their amazing offensive talent. I think it just didn't fit because of who is on the Jets. Because you put Line on the Jets, and like he's gonna do better than what he's doing in Columbus. He's on a totally different mindset of a team. Line benefits from playing on a team like the Jets, but the Jets don't benefit from Line playing on them because they already have what he does. They have
It's
goal scoring and Kyle Connor and Mark Scheifele, and they have their force and size and Blake Wheeler and guys like Logan Stanley now. And before that, Bufflin was on the team. Like it's just a weird spot. And to me, the Jets were too good to be drafting where they were drafting when they drafted Line. They just were lucky enough to fall that low.
See,
tough with Line because they compared him to Ovi. They said he was the next
Yeah.
Ovi, and he's never ever been remotely close to being the next Ovi.
Why can't he be just Patrick Line?
That's the NHL for you. They compare everybody to everybody.
yeah, I mean, comparisons is that's how you get views in a pan, right?
Yep.
But I mean, it's interesting, Braden, that you brought up Dustin Bufflin, right? I think that Dustin Bufflin was a guy that really reined in that dressing room because I think he doesn't care, right?
He
Mark
walked
Scheifele,
away.
he walked away, but Mark Scheifele, Blake Wheeler, it sounds like those guys have a very clear mindset of what they care about and what they place value in. But I don't think Dustin Bufflin did at all. I think he just didn't care. He showed up and he's like, no, we're going to do what we need to do and we're not going to worry about all that other stuff. And ever since the Jets have lost him, I don't know, they seem a bit like a leaky ship. Like we're hearing more things about them.
Yep.
Patrick Laine started getting bad mouthed. We started hearing more things about like Laine wanted to play with Scheifele, but I don't know if Scheifele wanted to play with him. I don't know. Maybe the guy that was reining in all those different personalities left, and that's what you're left with.
I get
It's
that.
tough with
like,
Bufflin too. Their biggest criticism with the Jets is their defense sucks, and he was a staple on that decor, even going back to when they were in Atlanta. You take away him, and yeah, Stanley might be great, Pionk might be great, but they're not there yet.
No. Hey, sorry to kind of cut in here, but we got like 3 minutes left on this particular recording. So I'm just going to give a quick shout out to our sponsor at the Mina in Iroquois Falls. Thanks for the sponsorship, Dan. Yeah, I'm not, if you want to come back on, I could send you another link.
Yeah, of course. I'd love
right
to.
now. Okay, sounds good. Or I don't know if I could just stop the